Everyone knew that Peter, the big shot in the wealthy elite circle, had a precious little darling he doted on. That girl was pampered like a princess straight out of a romance novel, spoiled and adored by everyone. Everyone except me. On the day of the wedding, she stood there in a white wedding dress, looking at me with blatant provocation. The one who isn't loved is the real side chick. So what if you marry Peter? I'm still the one he truly cares about. At her words, the corners of my lips curled up slightly. I turned my head and slapped Peter hard across the face. Are you dead? The side chick is right here in your face and you're playing dumb? Chapter 01. On the wedding day, Chloe wore a white wedding dress and stood before me, her eyes filled with challenge. The one who isn't loved is the real side chick. So what if you marry Peter? I'm still the one he keeps closest to his heart. The ceremony hadn't even started yet, but the backstage area was already crowded with people. Many of them were well-known heirs from the upper-class families of City A. Everyone looked at each other awkwardly, but no one dared to intervene. Why? Because everyone knew that Peter, the elite among elites, had a girl he treated like a treasure in the palm of his hand. That girl was pampered to the extreme, just like a romance novel heroine, spoiled by everyone in the Ning family. Even if I was now Peter Ning's wife, I was just a chess piece in a business alliance. There was no way I could compare to the woman who had his heart. The backstage was dead silent. Peter walked in, surrounded by a group of people, his expression cold and detached. But when his eyes landed on Chloe, they softened like winter ice melting into spring water. Then he turned to me again, his face hardening into frost. Why are you just standing here? The wedding is about to start. I let out a cold laugh and looked at Chloe. Do you dare to say what you just said again? Chloe sneered and repeated every word, loud and clear. Before she could finish, I swung my arm wide and slapped her hard across the face. Smack. I work out regularly, and I've got the arm strength to prove it. One slap, and Chloe's delicate little face immediately turned blue. A thin trickle of blood dripped from her nose, ruining her fragile, innocent makeup look and, honestly, giving it a touch of tragic comedy. She stood there, stunned, holding her face in disbelief. I scoffed and landed 2 more crisp slaps on both sides of her face. Peter's beloved darling? Please. I just beat up the woman Peter holds dearest. As I raised my hand again, Peter finally reacted. He grabbed my wrist mid-swing. Selena, have you lost your mind? Chloe's just a kid. You're really hitting her over a couple of childish words? She's a kid and you're flirting with her? What the hell is wrong with you? Once he finished speaking, I gave him a cold glare, then slapped him across the face with my other hand. Peter's cheeks swelled up instantly. I smirked and stared him down. You probably don't know this, but I'm famously fierce. People call me the slap battle goddess. With that, I shook off his grip and jabbed a finger in his face. I paid $1.5 billion for this business marriage, and this is what I get? A damn canary fantasy? You dirty old creep. If you want to sleep with young girls, just say it. Don't give me that grooming literature nonsense. You make me sick. Then I hurled the bouquet into Peter's face. If this mess doesn't get cleaned up today, no one is allowed to proceed with the wedding. You think I want to marry you? There are men lining up from here to France to pursue me. Who the hell do you think you are? If your father hadn't come begging, almost on his knees, do you really think you'd have a shot at this marriage? Screw you. With that, I ripped off my veil and strutted out of the backstage without looking back. Chapter 02. My mother was waiting in the dressing room. When she saw me coming, she gave me a thumbs up with a smile. You really are my daughter, boss energy. I let out a cold laugh and flopped onto the couch, crossing my legs. I've fought too many battles in the business world to be a fool. The Ning family letting Chloe humiliate me in public? That was nothing more than a loyalty test. The Nings were one of the top noble families in City A, their status unquestionable, but in recent years, they'd fallen behind the times. The Ning group had declined, and their profits had withered. To pull in new capital, they had no choice but to arrange a business marriage. And me? A rich woman with no powerful background? I was the perfect candidate. They were drooling over my billion-dollar dowry, but too proud to lower themselves and ask for it. So they simply chose to be whores while pretending to be saints, trying to manipulate me mentally, using their noble status to suppress me, trying to make this new money woman feel inferior. So I'd eventually hand them my dowry with both hands, practically begging them to take it. Thinking of that, I let out a sharp laugh. Pathetic. Even a dog would shake its head at this shameless stunt. They had it all planned out, but they didn't expect that I'm not some soft, squishy pushover. I'm a live grenade. I was raised by my mother, who caught the first wave of China's economic reform. Back then, with nothing but grit, she partnered with a few others and built her fortune from a steel factory. Later, she invested in internet businesses and accumulated massive wealth. And I outdid her. I made a name for myself overseas at a young age. Many well-known fashion brands on the market now, subsidiaries under my name. Business is war, and anyone who survives in it is no ordinary person. My mother and I, we're both top-tier combat types, especially when it comes to arguments. If not for the massive potential of the domestic market, I would never have agreed to this marriage with Peter. From the bottom of my heart, I looked down on Peter. My mother's assistant was undercover at the scene. She told us that old lady Ning had arrived, but things were still in deadlock. We were better off waiting it out in the dressing room. There were sunflower seeds and snacks inside, so my mother and I made ourselves comfortable on the couch. We munched seeds and cursed Peter to hell and back. In this society, any woman who shows a bit of weakness will be devoured by men. My mother and I had both clawed our way through the business world. We knew this truth all too well. That's why we're both fierce, and not afraid to raise our voices when needed. We knew damn well there were Ning family spies eavesdropping outside the door, so we just cursed louder. My mom came from the streets, and her cursing skills were next level. When she started shouting insults, it was an art form, fierce, relentless, creative. She practically dragged the entire Ning family's ancestors out of their graves to roast them. I chimed in from the side, adding fuel to the fire. We cursed for a full 30 minutes before we finally heard someone outside slam something and storm off. My mom took a leisurely sip of tea and said with mock concern, "Oh, they're already cracking? If they couldn't handle it, why bring that little bimbo to the wedding in the first place? Didn't they just come here begging for a tongue lashing?" I twirled the ring on my finger and chuckled. They're just masochists. Word is, everyone in the Ning family has a full-on submissive kink. The more you yell at them, the more obedient they get. Mom nodded in full agreement, clearly impressed with my analysis. Chapter 03. Another half hour passed, and still no one came. I knew the Ning family couldn't bring themselves to do it. They didn't want to lower their noble pride to beg a so-called low-status new money upstart. A message notification dinged. I picked up my phone. It was from the old lady of the Ning family. She asked me, for her sake, to forgive Peter and go attend the wedding. I immediately let out a cold laugh. For your sake? Your sake is worth less than dog shit. So, you won't come and apologize in person? Fine, then let's go to war. I glanced at the time and decisively called Peter. The call connected. From the sound of it, Peter had me on speakerphone. Before he could even speak, I said directly, "Peter, I'm giving you 5 minutes. You lowlife bastard. Better bring that little skank you keep and come apologize to me in person. If you don't, I remember you recently got a big-name investor to manage your assets, right? Don't forget, my main base is overseas, and I know my way around the fund business. From this moment on, if you're even a minute late, I'll become your worst financial enemy. You go short, I'll go long. You go long, I'll go short. I've got more money than I can spend. I'm not afraid of losing it. For every minute you're late, I'll make you lose 10 million. I mean it." And with that, I hung up the phone without a care for whatever shouting came from the other end. 3 minutes later, I heard hurried footsteps outside the dressing room. The door was flung open. It was Peter and Chloe. I sat on the couch, legs crossed, watching Peter walk up reluctantly. Only when he lowered his head and admitted defeat did I shift my gaze to Chloe. The girl's face was a mess of blue and red, like a walking paint palette. I gave a fake smile. "Chloe, I know you're just a kid. I get it. Your mouth runs faster than your brain. It's fine. Once I marry into the Ning family, I'll take my time teaching you." Then I pulled out a wad of cash from my handbag. "You're the little girl Peter keeps by his side, which makes me your stepmother. Come on, say Mom. Mommy's got a gift for you." Chloe's head snapped up. tears streaming down her face as she looked desperately at Peter. I smiled sweetly at her. After a long moment, Chloe clenched her teeth, hatred burning in her eyes, but she still had to bow her head. Mother, I laughed, raised my hand, and flung the wad of cash right at her face. Good girl. Mommy loves girls who know how to respect themselves. Stick with me from now on. Stop filling your brain with men. That's what we call a love-addled idiot, basically. A mental illness. Needs curing. With that, I stood up gracefully, brushed imaginary dust off my dress, and turned to Peter with a smile. What are you standing there for, Peter? Let's go. Chapter 04. The wedding ended without a hitch, and I, Selena, became an overnight sensation among the elite of City A. Slapping your husband and his kept woman at the wedding? And in a prestigious family? That's one hell of a record. Everyone said I was a legend. My in-laws had planned to humiliate me publicly. Who would have thought I'd flip the script, what they tried to fling at me like rotten garbage? I shoved right back down their throats. I didn't care what the public said. All I knew was, I became the official young madam of the Ning family. On the wedding night, Peter came into the bedroom, his face black as the bottom of a pot. Selena, let me tell you, you may have my body now, but don't even think about getting my heart. I let out a cold laugh and kicked him off the bed. Who the hell wants that pasty, pig-like body of yours? I get nauseous just looking at it, and I faint at the sight of pork. Get out. The next morning, I woke up refreshed and ready. The first thing I did was call all the mansion staff together. The butler stood at the center, hands respectfully at his sides. I looked him up and down, then suddenly smiled. Who signs your paycheck now? The butler replied respectfully. You do, young madam. I nodded. Not bad. He caught on quick. Once he finished, I picked up a teacup and gently skimmed the foam from the surface. Since you know who's feeding you, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Watch yourselves. If I fire you, let's see if those old geezers would still want you. I glanced around. A few junior staff flinched and bowed their heads even lower. Once the staff had dispersed, I looked up and saw Peter standing on the second floor, frowning down at me. I set the teacup on the table and said calmly, "Come down if you've got something to say." I hate looking up at people. Hearing that, Peter descended the stairs, 2 dark circles under his eyes. Never slept on the floor before? No worries, you'll get used to it with time. Peter's voice was cold and rigid. Selena, must you go this far? I raised an eyebrow. Go this far? It's called managing employees. They follow my orders and do their jobs, and I'll reward them generously. Clear rewards and punishments, that's basic business logic. You've been running the Ning family for years and haven't figured that out yet? Seeing my mocking expression, Peter took a deep breath and changed the subject. So, the 1.5 billion, when will you transfer it to me? I laughed out loud and shot back. My dowry? Why should I give it to you? You didn't even give me a betrothal gift, and you're asking for my dowry? What do you want it for? Faced with my triple question combo, Peter clenched his fists and muttered, "The Ning family is going through some difficulties. We're short on capital. We need your dowry to invest. As for the betrothal gift, we were in the wrong. I'm sorry." I burst out laughing. A vague sorry, and you think that's enough to take my 1.5 billion? Keep dreaming. I leaned back on the sofa, crossed my legs, and smiled. You want my dowry? Fine. But every penny you invest, every cent you inject into the Ning family, has to go through my people. Every single business move you make will require prior approval from my assistant. The anger Peter had been holding in finally exploded. Selena, you're being ridiculous. I've never met a woman as harsh and petty as you. Seeing him lose it, I smashed the teacup onto the ground. Crash. I stared him down. Peter Ning, you two-faced bastard. When your Ning family wouldn't give me a dime, wouldn't share a single resource or connection, you didn't say a word. But now that it's my turn, suddenly I'm harsh? Let me make this clear. This is a business marriage. If you want cooperation, mutual benefit, resource exchange, I'm open to it. But if you think you're gonna leech off me for free, you better count how many lives you've got left. I stood up and looked down at him. I know you like gentle women, but your kind of affection? To me, it's the same as dog shit. Absolutely worthless. Figure out your business value. Show me some sincerity, then come talk to me about partnership. With that, I left Peter standing there, grabbed my handbag from the butler, and walked out the front door. Chapter 05. I was never some pampered rich housewife. I have my own career, and I don't have time to sit around the Ning family as a decorative vase. For the Lin family's branch company in City A, I've been putting in a lot of effort lately. Originally, I agreed to marry into the Ning family to expand my network. Now that I've achieved that goal, it's time to focus on business development. After the pressure I put on Peter this morning, things have been going much more smoothly for my work in City A. Seeing that the Ning family was finally showing some sincerity, I didn't hold back either. With a wave of my hand, I invested a substantial sum into the Ning Corporation. After all, I'm now a shareholder of the Ning Group. Their success is mine. Their failure is mine too. But every investment comes with conditions. To keep the Nings from misusing my money, I sent Peter a contract. If the Ning Group doesn't hit the profit target I set within 3 months, I won't release any further funds. My assistant told me Peter threw a major tantrum in his office after receiving the contract. But so what? He still agreed to all my terms in the end. When Anna, my assistant, brought me the signed contract, her face was filled with concern. Miss Lin, aren't we pushing too hard with all these tight controls? I casually flicked the contract and smiled. Anna, you're still young. You don't understand. When you're dealing with people like the Nings, you have to be this ruthless. They look down on me. They look down on where I come from. And they especially look down on my gender. This society asks far too much of women. A woman must be obedient. She must stay in a man's shadow. The moment she shows any traits that are considered to belong to men, people call her trouble or say she's undateable. Everything I'm doing now is just standard business practice. But even so, Peter thinks I'm pressuring him too much, that I'm not a good woman. Screw that good woman crap. Under my high-pressure policies, the giant ship of Ning Group finally began to move. Peter, terrified that I'd pull my investment, started throwing himself into his work like a madman. There were leadership shakeups, and internal power shifts began swirling like a storm. Every night, Peter didn't come home until the dead of night. Chapter 06. By the time the construction of my branch office in City A was wrapped up, I suddenly remembered I still had a goddaughter named Chloe. The butler reminded me that Chloe's birthday was coming up. According to tradition, Peter would throw a lavish party at the mansion every year. I followed the usual custom and even went the extra mile by buying Chloe a full set of jewelry. Watching Chloe pretend to be aloof, while her eyes sparkled with barely contained joy, made the corner of my lips curl slightly. Let her enjoy it while she can. She won't be staying in the Ning family much longer anyway. At the party, I wore a dark red bodycon gown. Around my neck was a ruby necklace my mother had just brought back from an auction. The centerpiece stone was blood red, dangerously beautiful. Chloe, on the other hand, wore a dusty pink qipao, her curled hair cascading over her chest. She looked like the very picture of a delicate damsel, barefaced and pitiful. Peter gazed at Chloe with a look full of tenderness, but when his eyes landed on me, his brows instantly furrowed. I didn't care. I casually touched up my lipstick in the mirror. At the banquet, I entered arm in arm with Peter. The crowd exchanged glances, but no one said a word. I knew full well, Peter used to appear at these events with Chloe. Now that it was me, bold and unapologetic, they weren't used to it. But that didn't last long. Soon, they changed their minds. Once the banquet officially began, I ditched Peter and began mingling with a glass of wine. Those businessmen who used to look down on me now smiled and raised their glasses in toast. After all, I now carried the title of Mrs. Ning. Offending me wasn't in their best interest. I hadn't spent years in the business world for nothing. After a few rounds of small talk, those arrogant social elites finally realized I wasn't just for show. They grew serious and began engaging me in real conversation. After several toasts, I excused myself to the restroom. While fixing my hair in front of the mirror, I overheard some voices. A girl in a pink dress said to her friend, "Didn't expect Chloe's stepmom to be so fierce. She looks like a nightmare to mess with." Another girl let out a sneer. "So what? No matter how scary she is, we don't need to suck up to her. Our families aren't exactly nobodies." Chloe's enemies are our enemies. Don't give her any special treatment. I snorted quietly, amused. A bunch of snot-nosed brats think they can isolate me? Sure, your families are part of the upper crust in City A, but none of you have the right to speak yet. By the time you do have a voice, I'll already have roots in every corner of this city. I don't care who you are, you'll all have to do business with me. I couldn't be bothered to listen to any more of their childish gossip. I fixed my hair and walked out. When I returned to the banquet, Chloe was already standing beside Peter. Peter looked at her with loving eyes. Today is our Chloe's 18th birthday. May she stay safe and happy every day. With that, he picked up a crown from a velvet cushion and placed it on Chloe's head. It was an antique he'd bought from an auction, priceless. One girl in the crowd couldn't help whispering to her friend, "Looks like the Ning family really values Chloe." Chloe looked up and spotted me. Her gentle face was full of provocation. I pretended not to notice. Chloe smiled sweetly and asked, "Mommy, what are you planning to give me?" With Peter's extravagant gift on display, if I didn't give her something expensive, people would start whispering, "What a tacky nouveau riche." And the only thing more valuable than antiques was company shares. But then, the corner of my lips curled into a sly smile as I clapped my hands. The butler came forward, holding a delicate tray. I yanked off the red cloth, revealing a simple envelope. Chloe opened the envelope with disdain, but the moment she saw what was inside, her eyes widened in shock. She stared at me in disbelief. I smiled gently and met her gaze, my tone soft. "Mommy knows you're smart, have high standards, and are picky about schools. So Mommy asked Professor Martin to write a recommendation letter for you. He personally recommended you to the Faculty of Law at the University of Munich. On your 18th birthday, Mommy wishes you a bright future and a beautiful life of your own." The look Chloe gave me completely changed. She'd grown up in wealth and privilege, always surrounded by the upper class. Peter meant a lot to her. Yes, but right now, the offer mattered more. Especially a handwritten recommendation from Professor Martin, a name even Peter couldn't secure by visiting in person. At that moment, Chloe finally called me mother with genuine emotion. My smile only grew more layered and meaningful. "Go ahead, Chloe. Enroll in the University of Munich's Faculty of Law. Study your heart out, let it silence you. After all, those 3 years of undergraduate law in Germany, they'll be the most meaningful 7 years of your next 5. By the time you finally claw your way through graduation and return home, I guarantee you'll be a pure and peaceful little soul, completely disinterested in Peter." Even I, as smart as I am, barely survived that place without delaying my graduation. For someone like Chloe, with a bit of cleverness but way too much arrogance, she's going to suffer badly. That silly girl was still thanking me profusely. I played the part of the loving mother, smiling as I accepted her thanks and her gift. The banquet hall was filled with joy and celebration, except for Peter and the rest of the Ning family, whose faces had all gone stiff. I glanced at them but didn't say a word. I knew exactly what they were planning. They'd been delaying Chloe's school arrangements because they wanted to keep her in the country. With Chloe at home, they thought she could clash with me, distract me, tangle with me over household drama within the Ning family. Meanwhile, they'd freely use my dowry for their business operations in the Ning Corporation. Confident I'd be too busy bickering with Chloe to notice. But please, do they really think I'd waste time on some soap opera level love triangle? One irresistible recommendation letter was all it took to shut their mouths and send that little landmine named Chloe packing. Chapter 07. After Chloe received the recommendation letter, she immediately began studying the language. Time was short, and German was far from the easy language she'd imagined. Even with some prior foundation, the deeper she went, the harder it got. And on top of that, she still had to juggle other subjects. I didn't bother going easy on her. I spent a fortune hiring multiple elite tutors to teach her every day, non-stop. At the Ning family mansion, Peter watched from the sidelines, but couldn't find a single thing to criticize. Just as he was about to suggest Chloe go toe-to-toe with me again, I cut him off with a smile. "Darling, Chloe's at a critical stage right now. If you really love her, don't hold her back. I may not be highly educated, but even I know that of all paths, academics is the highest. Chloe enjoys studying, surely that's a good thing, right?" I smiled sweetly, eyes fixed on Peter, and for a moment, he actually looked guilty. Especially that part, I may not be highly educated, that hit him where it hurt. He used to look down on me, couldn't even be bothered to read up on my background. It wasn't until I pulled out Professor Martin's recommendation letter at Chloe's birthday banquet that he finally started paying attention. A graduate of the University of Munich's Faculty of Law, dual degrees in law and finance. During her master's, she happened to meet the founder of a luxury brand, found her path, dropped out without hesitation, and launched her own label. By age 28, she had amassed a fortune, kept a low profile, and was only now entering the domestic market. And him? A so-called elite in wealthy circles, who coasted through a degree abroad under his family's name, then came home and wasted time playing sugar daddy. How could he possibly compare to me? Now that he knew who I really was. Peter's ego had taken a massive hit. He'd been avoiding me for days. As for me, I couldn't care less. I had my own empire to build. Chapter 08. On Friday night, I arranged a dinner at the club with several suppliers. The venue was elegant, flowing water winding past the pavilions, paired with a skilled musician playing gentle southern melodies that echoed through the air with a soft, lingering charm. I went back and forth negotiating with the suppliers. After several rounds of business sparring, I finally secured what I wanted at the lowest possible price, just within their limits. One middle-aged man with a bloated belly let out a bitter laugh. "Boss Lin, it's really exhausting doing business with you." I beamed and clinked glasses with him. "Mr. Wong, you flatter me. We're just equally sharp." After a few rounds of drinks, I excused myself, saying I needed the restroom, and slipped away for a breather. The rooftop view was excellent. I had just pulled out my lighter when I heard a familiar voice. It was Peter Ning, along with the old matriarch of the Ning family. I quickly turned and ducked behind the nearby curtain, listening closely. The old woman, who normally acted kind and gentle, now had a cold, hoarse tone. "Why haven't you dealt with Selena yet? Don't tell me you can't even handle a woman." Peter sounded extremely irritated. "It's not that I don't want to. Selena's too sharp. She's no pushover. And there's no way to get that 1.5 billion into our hands directly." The old lady sneered. "She's just a woman. How capable could she possibly be? Your sister-in-law was tough too. Remember? In the end, didn't she cough up every last cent of her dowry?" Silence fell over the rooftop. Then the old woman continued slowly, calmly. "If she won't hand over the dowry, that's fine. Turn her into a vegetable, and all her money will be ours, just like we did with your sister-in-law. Don't tell me you can't even handle something that simple." I froze where I stood, eyes flashing with sarcasm. So this is what the Ning family's really like. Huh? After the mother and son left, I was just about to step out when I heard footsteps approaching. A smooth, warm voice followed. "Miss Lin, did you happen to hear all of that just now?" I pulled the curtain aside and looked up. A tall man stood before me, white shirt with subtle patterns, gray sweater, wire-rimmed glasses, a walking contradiction of elegance and menace. It was Gabriel Ning, professional executive at the Ning Group, and their illegitimate son. He grew up in the slums until age 15, then was brought into the elite circle to earn his place. He fought for survival in the Ning family for 3 years, then left for the US to study at 18. After graduating, he returned and still chose to pledge loyalty to Ning Group. I twirled the ends of my hair and lazily met his gaze. "So, Mr. Ning went to all this trouble to let me hear that little conversation. What do you want?" Gabriel gave a low chuckle. No pretenses, he laid his ambition bare. "I want the entire Ning family. Work with me. Once it's done, I'll give you 6% of Ning Group's shares. And the 1.5 billion? I'll pay it back. Principal and interest. Every penny." I looked him up and down, then reached out decisively to shake his hand. "Deal." Chapter 09. The reason I agreed to work with Gabriel so easily was simple. His background played a major part. An incompetent, lust-driven old patriarch of the Ning family, a ruthless, manipulative matriarch, a mother who was taken by force. And then, Gabriel, the illegitimate son. On top of that, Peter had long despised Gabriel's position as a professional executive within the Ning Group. If it weren't for the board's constant interference, Peter would have stripped him of his title ages ago. At this point, even if Gabriel were the type to avoid conflict, he'd be forced to fight back. Not to mention, he wasn't the peaceful type. He was ambitious. Through and through. After accepting Gabriel's offer of cooperation, I didn't make any sudden moves. Everything stayed the same. I went to work and left on time like always. Every now and then, I played the role of a concerned mother, checking in on Chloe, who was practically collapsing from study fatigue. Then, when I was in the mood, I'd humiliate Peter with a few scathing remarks. Men like Peter, when you're strong, they go weak. When you're weak, they try to overpower you. Under my iron-fisted pressure, he didn't even dare to breathe too loud. Then came the moment I truly shook things up in City A. Once I got the branch business fully running and started raking in profits from the Ning Group as an investor. That was when the old matriarch finally ran out of patience. The day I took my cut and left the boardroom, she slammed her hand on the table, right in front of all the shareholders. She pointed at Peter's nose and screamed, "How did I raise such a useless son?" Then, face twisted with rage, she stormed out of the room. When Gabriel recounted all this to me with a grin, I burst out laughing. When I finally stopped, he picked up his coffee and said, "But President Lin, you'd better be careful. If even she's angry now, it won't be long before she tries to make a move on you." I snorted. The Ning family fell to this state because of that snake in a smiling mask hag. So what if I took 40% of the profits? Without my investment, they wouldn't have made a single cent. Gabriel nodded in agreement. The Nings are used to freeloading. That's their nature. Just be alert. I've got someone close to the old lady. When she makes her move, I'll warn you. Once we finished discussing that, we talked a bit more about the next steps in our plan, then went our separate ways. Getting someone out of this world without raising suspicion is easier than most people think. Poison, or a car accident. Poison comes in two types, slow and subtle, or fast and fatal. But ever since I returned to the country, I've been constantly appearing in the public eye. Killing me outright would be too obvious. That leaves only the slow poison option. But given how fast I'm expanding, as if I were a sponge sucking up the entire business landscape, any delay gives me another foothold. Every single day they wait, I chip away more of the Ning family's status in City A. Slow poison takes too long. By the time symptoms showed, the Ning Group would already be renamed Lin Group. That's why a car accident is the most cost-effective and efficient way to kill me. Gabriel said the old witch is an expert at covering up her crimes with staged car crashes. His own mother? She died in one, planned by that same matriarch. Of course. Things are different now. Gabriel is no longer the powerless illegitimate boy he used to be. He promised me that the moment he hears anything, he'll leak it to me. After all, at this point, he and we're in the same boat. Chapter 10. The day our plan would unfold came sooner than expected. Back when Peter was trying to build up Chloe's image, he specifically had an art museum constructed to display her oil paintings. That museum had just been completed. As the official owner, Peter of course had to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony. I've always disliked riding in the same car as Peter, and today was no exception. Chloe was busy with her studies, so it had to be just me and Peter going. Right before we were about to leave, I got an urgent call from my secretary. The supplier we had signed with suddenly jacked up their prices at the last minute and was demanding renegotiation. It couldn't wait. After taking the call, I immediately informed Peter to go ahead without me. Though clearly annoyed, he didn't dare argue under my pressure and left first. The car he normally used had shown a minor system glitch half an hour earlier. Peter assumed it was some subtle signal from his mother and obediently switched to the car I usually used. 5 minutes after he left, I randomly picked another vehicle from the garage and headed to the office. The supplier issue was real, but I'm no fool. When something's premeditated, it's easy to resolve. An hour later, I walked out of the meeting room, having settled the supplier's betrayal. That was when I received a call from the police. They told me my husband Peter had been in a serious car accident. His skull had been shattered. I needed to get to the hospital immediately. I responded at once, assuring them I'd be there as quickly as possible, and asked the doctors to do everything they could, no matter the cost. By the time I arrived at the hospital, the old matriarch of the Ning family was already stationed outside the ICU. When she saw me, her eyes lit up with a hatred so intense it was almost tangible. "Selena, you bitch! Why did you hurt my son?" Sobbing, she lunged at me and began pounding on my body with her fists. "He's my only son. Why did you have to hurt him? My assistant Anna, strong as ever, stepped forward and shoved her away. Her face was cold as ice as she stared the old woman down. Madam, we understand you're distraught, but don't go around flinging accusations. Our President Lin just came from the office. How could she possibly have had time to scheme against your son? But here's a question for you. Why did the driver specifically crash into the car that President Lin usually takes? Anna, trained by me, had developed a fierce, no-nonsense expression. Her sharp gaze swept across the Ning family members, and they all looked away, guilt flashing in their eyes. Gabriel stepped in to stop the old lady. Mother, until the police finish investigating, maybe it's best you spend more time with your son. That only made things worse. The old matriarch turned and glared at him with venom in her eyes. Then, slap! She hit him across the face. Silence fell over the entire hallway. Gabriel lowered his head without a word. With slender fingers, he gently touched his cheek. The old woman sneered. Now that your brother's in this state, I bet you're thrilled, aren't you? Let me tell you, if anything happens to Peter, none of you are getting out of this unscathed. With that, she threw off the maid supporting her and stormed off. Gabriel and I stood silently in front of the operating room. The hospital hallway lights flickered dimly, but in Gabriel's eyes, I saw a burning glow, like fire. This man wasn't the submissive, easy-to-handle person his surface suggested. Peter once had an older brother. 3 years ago, that brother was shot dead outside a casino in the US. During a gambling incident, the matriarch flew into a rage, hiring the best legal team to sue the casino owner, demanding justice for her son. But the casino owner had mafia ties. And his brother? A famous local attorney, with both sides locked in a legal standoff, and the incident having taken place abroad. The case eventually ended in stalemate. But if you dug deeper, you'd discover that same lawyer's partner, his lover, was a close college friend of Gabriel's when he studied in the US. Love may not move people, but hate? Hate can give birth to terrifying power. Gabriel was someone raised on hatred, like a venomous snake, lurking in silence for years, waiting for that one chance to strike and kill. People like that are not to be provoked lightly. Chapter 11. Doctors aren't miracle workers. No one survives having their skull cracked open and their brain splattered. After over 10 hours of emergency treatment, Peter was officially pronounced dead. The moment the Ning matriarch received the news, she nearly fainted. But only nearly, because the police arrived. They came with the confession of the truck driver who caused the crash, ready to arrest the primary suspect. That truck driver wasn't stupid. The Ning matriarch had promised him, if he killed me, she would cover the astronomical costs of his daughter and mother's genetic disease treatments. But now he had screwed up. He didn't kill me, he killed the person she loved most, her only son. And now, no one would protect him. To save his own skin, he confessed everything, clean and fast. With his full statement in hand, the police arrested the Ning matriarch on the spot. She tried to pull out her identity card, hoping her status would shield her from prosecution. But the 2 cops assigned to the case were young rookies, completely unimpressed by her. Only then did she start to panic. Her old voice cracked with fear and echoed through the hospital halls. Gabriel and I sat at the police station. Once our statements were taken, we were free to go. After all the chaos, I felt exhausted. Gabriel, however, looked perfectly composed. He'd finished earlier, changed into a fresh outfit somewhere along the way. He now wore a tailored suit, the faint scent of cologne lingering around him. I turned to look at him. He adjusted the metal-rimmed glasses on his nose and gave me a gentlemanly smile. Miss Lin, go get some rest. When you wake up, your shares and the full 1.5 billion will be returned to you. Looking at him, I knew, after years of lurking in the shadows, he was finally ready to reclaim what was his. As for me, I had zero interest in the mess that was the Ning family. The Ning group was a chaotic swamp full of competing relatives, trying to seize. Anything from that structure was like trying to snatch meat from a pack of starving wolves. I'd only been part of the Ning family for half a year, and already, it felt like quicksand. If I wasn't fully prepared, I wasn't going to act recklessly. Besides, there was still much to be done at my branch in City A. Now wasn't the time for power grabs. As long as I received the shares in 1.5 billion that were mine by marriage law, I was content. A luxury car drove me back to the Ning family mansion. As I stepped out, I saw Chloe standing by the entrance, her face pale. When she saw me, her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. I walked up and gently patted her on the shoulder. Peter is dead. Chloe gave a stiff nod, then looked up at me. All her former arrogance and defiance were gone. I exhaled lightly. You still have school to finish. The University of Munich's Faculty of Law doesn't mess around. You're far from ready. Study hard. Then I lowered my gaze and locked eyes with her. As for the rest of it, Peter didn't leave you a single thing. No shares, no trust fund, no real estate, nothing. Legally, you were never adopted. Peter had no guardianship over you. You're not entitled to a single cent. When I said that, Chloe's lips turned ghostly pale in an instant. Her whole body looked like it could collapse at any moment. Peter had raised Chloe simply to indulge in his little grooming fantasy. He never cared about her future. After all, she was meant to remain dependent on him. Giving her too much would only backfire on him. But looking at Chloe's fragile state now, I sighed and turned to the lawyer waiting behind me. The female attorney stepped forward, gently took Chloe's hand, and handed her an agreement. In a soft voice, she explained, "As your stepmother, President Lin won't leave you out in the cold. This agreement states that as long as you promise not to participate in Ning Group's internal power struggles, and refrain from using your identity as Peter's adopted daughter in any future Ning-related dealings, you will receive the following assets. This includes full coverage of your study expenses in Germany, 50 million yuan in cash, and 2 fully owned apartments in City A. All the luxury goods and jewelry Peter bought for you, you may keep them." Chloe stood frozen, then slowly lifted her gaze to me as if waking from a dream. My face remained calm and expressionless. Spending a bit of money to keep Chloe permanently out of the Ning Group was a bargain. Right now, Chloe poses no real threat. But in the future, if someone with ulterior motives used her name to operate within the Ning Group, it'd be a headache. If Chloe had ambition and refused to sign the agreement, I had 10,000 ways to ensure she'd be completely removed from anything related to the Nings. After a long pause, Chloe suddenly clutched my hand tightly and blurted out, desperately, "I'm willing. I'll sign it. I'll sign right now. Give me the contract. I'll do it." Hearing her say that, I smiled with satisfaction. Just the jewelry Peter bought her was worth more than 50 million. Adding the cash and real estate I was offering, if she kept her head down, she'd live comfortably in City A for the rest of her life. Chapter 12. When the new school year began, I sent Chloe off and turned my attention to managing the shares and assets I had inherited from Peter. Though this business marriage didn't last long, from a commercial standpoint, it had brought me substantial profit. Gabriel held the majority of the shares, but my portion was still enough to secure me a seat on the board. The day I went to the Ning Group, I met Gabriel. He looked poised and elegant as ever, greeting me with a smile and inviting me to grab a coffee with him. I accepted. In the cafe downstairs, Gabriel brought over 2 freshly brewed cups and sat beside me. I took mine and smiled. "I thought you'd take me somewhere a bit fancier." Gabriel chuckled and shook his head, then turned his gaze toward the window. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling glass, casting soft lines across his face. It should have been a warm, cheerful scene, but I could see the sadness behind his smile. After a moment, he said quietly, "When I was a kid, I used to pass by this place on my way to school. I'd look in through the window at the office workers inside. I remember thinking, someday I want to work here, earn money, take care of my mom. Eventually, I did become the owner of this place, but my mother's no longer around." Hearing that, I fell silent. Not long ago, Gabriel reopened the investigation into his mother's death and filed for a retrial. He claimed she hadn't died in an accident, but had been murdered by the Ning family matriarch. And the evidence he submitted was solid. A complete chain of proof, undeniable facts. The old woman was charged with premeditated murder, along with a list of other crimes. Multiple counts, at worst. A death sentence, at best. Prison for the rest of her life. There was no escaping justice now. After a lifetime of scheming and control, in the end, all the Ning family fortune fell into the hands of an illegitimate son. Who knows what she'd think about that? When Gabriel snapped out of his thoughts and looked at me again, he gave an apologetic smile. "Forgive me for rambling, Miss Lin. I waved my hand lightly. He continued. You've helped me so much, I mean it. If there's ever anything you need in City A, just let me know. The Ning group's internal struggles haven't exactly died down. Fortunately, I built some decent connections back when I was a professional executive. I can manage. This is where we part ways. With that, he stood up and said goodbye. After he left, I looked out the window. It was early autumn in City A. The sun was bright, and the trees outside were lush and full of life. Everything looked fresh and full of promise. I'd been in City A for just over half a year. I'd built a new company, secured a board seat at the Ning Group, and my future was just beginning. Story 2. On New Year's Day, my husband drank excessively and suddenly fell critically ill. By the time he was carried onto the ambulance, he was already beyond saving. Heartbroken, I held his hand and asked if he had any last wishes. Although he was on his deathbed, his thoughts were unnervingly clear. The first thing he did was apologize to me. I'm sorry, Alice. Actually, you were the one who got into college back then, but I took your acceptance letter. I was stunned, frozen in place, unable to process what I had just heard. Then his second sentence hit me like a hammer, shattering my heart once again. After I die, please bury me together with Lisa. She's the only one I've ever loved in this life. Overwhelmed with fury and grief, I lost all control. Before he passed, I died first out of sheer rage. Before my consciousness completely faded, I heard my son wailing over his father's body. Dad, rest in peace. I'll make sure Lisa's funeral is grand and dignified. Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I had been reborn. Back to the year of the college entrance exam, the first thing I saw was a younger Sam, with that familiar yet distant face, now etched with clear impatience. Alice, can you stop causing trouble? As my mind gradually cleared, I hadn't fully regained my senses before he shoved me hard against the wall, scattering the study materials in my hands all over the floor. You'll never get into college. Giving you these books is a waste. They'd be better off with Lisa. She's good at studying. The pain radiating from my back brought me to full awareness. I had returned to the day Sam took my study materials. Those materials were a precious gift from my father, who had swallowed his pride and asked an old war buddy for them. In my previous life, I had been reluctant to hand them over, but I eventually gave in to Sam's threats and empty promises. He had warned me that if I didn't give the materials to Lisa, he'd break up with me. He even promised that if I helped Lisa this time, he would never see her again. Back then, I was hopelessly blinded by love, and his sweet lies had made me forget all about the importance of those study materials. Now, aware of my rebirth and recalling everything from my past life, my heart turned cold as ice. Lisa's good at studying? A girl who's always at the bottom of the class, who can't understand a simple middle school math problem even after you explain it 3 times. Do you dare call her good at studying? Sam froze, clearly unprepared for my sudden defiance. What nonsense are you spouting? She only struggled because of her health. She didn't perform well on exams because she wasn't feeling well. How convenient, getting sick every time there's an exam. Hearing that, Sam was momentarily speechless, a flicker of doubt flashing in his eyes. I ignored him and rushed to gather the study materials from the floor, clutching them tightly to my chest. This time, no one was going to take them from me. Seeing me guard the materials as if I were protecting treasure, Sam's expression twisted in anger. Lisa was right, you're so malicious. Always thinking the worst of her. Malicious? Ha, sure, Sam, I'm malicious, so what? Let me make this clear, these materials were hard-earned by my dad, and I'm not giving them to anyone. If you want to be with Lisa, go ahead. Stop pretending to care about me. Sam clearly hadn't expected such a firm response from me. A flash of panic crossed his face. He tried to calm himself, softening his tone. All right, don't get mad. I was too harsh earlier. I'm sorry. An apology? Forget it. But if you want these materials, the answer is no. At that moment, I didn't even feel like wasting another word on him. Sam frowned deeply, clearly thrown off his game. Still, he tried to plead, you won't get into college anyway. Why not give them to Lisa? If she gets in, she'll repay you. In your dreams, You're impossible. Look. I've told you, I'll marry you. I've only ever seen her as a sister. I rolled my eyes at him. There it was again, his old act. In my previous life, he loved using this tactic. Every time he wanted something from me, he would sweet-talk me when I resisted. Say whatever you want. I won't give it to you. With that, I clutched the materials tightly and ran home, afraid he might try to snatch them from me. When I got home, my parents had already prepared the meal. Where's Sam? Why didn't you invite him to join us for dinner? Noticing I was still holding the materials, my father continued. Weren't you going to give those to Sam so he could help you study? Why did you bring them back? I've changed my mind. I'd rather study on my own. He'll only distract me. My parents exchanged a look, sensing something was off. I didn't want to hide the truth from them, so I explained. He doesn't want to help me at all. He said I'm stupid and won't get into college. He also told me to give the materials to Lisa. Their expressions darkened immediately.